Welcome to Amazing Stories of Amazing Grace. I'm your host, Chester Stanley, and delighted to have in the studio Pastor Frank Williams. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you with us, and we have shared in the past about your story of amazing grace in your life, Frank, and we want you to share that with the viewers today. You've got a fairly significant accent there. Where do you come from?
Well, I came from the U.S., but I got a bit of a mixture. I'm a Southerner, and we Southerners, we the cream of the crop.
Okay, right.
So I tell myself anyway.
Yes.
Yes, but I was born and raised in the South. Yes.
Okay, right.
Yes.
So look, why don't you share with us some of your background? Were you a member of, were you brought up as an Adventist, member of the Adventist Church, living back as a young person in the States?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't. I was born into a Christian home, and it was 7 siblings in the first marriage, and then we had, my parents had, well, not we, but parents had, in the second was my mother's first husband died, and then she married my father, and there was 4 of us.
So 11 altogether?
11 siblings altogether. So you can imagine I saw many hungry days, because back then things was pretty hard for getting food or looking after children. And as they say, my father said to me, I said, why so many children? He said, well, you need to ask your mother that. He said, I only got 4. He said, there was 7 before you guys. And he said, son, that wasn't in television either in those days. If it was, he couldn't afford it anyway. But yeah, life was, I can't say, as a child, you know, you can't say life was hard. We always had a plenty to eat. I never went hungry, and I would eat anything that was there to eat. But life was normal for a middle-class family in America back in those days. We didn't have very much. Basically, how we got all our recreation was going to church. And I went to church all of my life, so I'm familiar with church. But even though there were some things that I never really understood until I became Adventist, when I was introduced to Adventism. Yes, in my life, I'm the only one of my siblings that outside of the United States. Matter of fact, let me say this with sadness, out of the 11, there's only 2 of us left.
Okay.
Yeah, only 2 of us left, a brother and myself. But I'm the only one that ventured outside of the United States. They called me a traitor. They used the word a black sheep of the family. Well, what else could I be? They just say I'm one of the sheep that strayed away. Yeah, but I'm the only one that's outside of the United States. All the rest of them has never been out of the United States. It's incredible. So here I am here in Australia and enjoying every moment of it.
Okay, so in terms of your, so you go to school in the States.
Yes.
What did you do after that?
Yes, when I finished my school, and I went to, I'd never finished high school at that point with my family. I finished high school after I had left home. Now, I left home at the age of 14. I went out on my own. And by the grace of God, I went through school. I schooled myself, and then I wound up in the end serving in the armed forces. Yes, in the Navy. And that is one of the reasons why I'm here. I thank God for the Navy. Because I'm here, yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, yeah, your life in the armed forces as a young man, was it a Christian lifestyle you lived?
Oh, no, anything but. Yeah, and I really don't elaborate on it that much, because I think if I elaborated on that part of my life, it would be giving too much respect to Satan, and I give God all the glory. Yes, and I do thank God for the ships, because without the ships, I don't think I'll ever been able to come to Australia.
Yes.
Because at one time, as you would know, sailors, army people never got past Hawaii.
Yes.
When you got to Hawaii, you went back to America. If a ship was coming to Australia, all of the black fellows got off, and you know, that came to Australia. So here I am in Australia, and I thank God for that, you know, for even being here, because here I met Jesus.
Yes, but your lifestyle was anything but Christian, I gather, Frank.
Oh,
without...
anything but. Anything but.
Sailors are
yes.
known for having a...
Yes. I never ever thought of Christianity at all, even though I came from a family that was staunch Christians. But when I got up, when I was going to church, I suppose, forgive me for saying this, but even today, I suppose I saw so much hypocrisy in the church that I was more interested in what was happening on the outside, or seeing people sitting in church saying they were Christians. So it was easier for me to walk away. So I just walked away from it, and that's what. And I never came back until I came to Australia. Never thought about coming back. Yeah.
Did you have any sort of longings during this time you're in the armed forces, etc., towards God, or was there any? Were you on any sort of search? Not really. You were just having a good time, I suppose.
Only when there was typhoons, Chester.
Yes.
When there was bad storms at the sea, everybody thinks of God. You know, you know. Sometimes you would pray, "Lord, help me. Lord, save me." Yes. But that was the only time, you know, that when I needed the Lord, when I saw that would nothing else help me. But once things mellowed out to back where it was, and I forgot about God.
Yes.
You know, So I really had no experience with God at all. Matter of fact, I've heard of God, but I didn't know Him.
Yes.
You know,
Yes, for sure. And you obviously travelled the world in terms of the armed forces? And...
Yes, I went quite a few places that I wouldn't have gone otherwise. Matter of fact, Australia is one of them. I wouldn't have gone otherwise, but I've seen quite a bit of the world, and I have enjoyed it. I really have enjoyed the world, that part that I've seen, because it's nice when you go out and meet people, different people, you know. All of a sudden here you looking at a person, he's breathing, he's a human being, but he's totally different. You can't understand his language, you don't know the customs, you don't know anything, but yet they are people. And I enjoy people, and I used to enjoy that very, very much.
Were you, as a sailor, were you a peacemaker, or did you get into trouble easily? Or?
Well, yeah, a little bit of both, But I'm sort of a coward, I guess you could say, and I'm glad I am.
Yes.
I tried to stay out of trouble.
Okay.
Yes, so no, I never was one of those guys. I was a guy that was trying to find happiness in the bottom of a bottle. And believe me, I saw
lots of alcohol there.
Yeah, but believe me, I saw a lot of empty bottles.
Yes.
You know, so and I didn't know why I wasn't happy. Now I realize why I wasn't.
Okay.
You know,
so it was a pretty hard drinking sort of lifestyle.
Yes. And that was, like I said, it's amazing now for where I am, how I think. Yes. And how I look at Christianity and what Jesus means to me in my life today. Yes. And I'm thinking, why didn't I see that before?
That's fantastic, Frank. We'll go to a break and stay right with us, and we'll be back. Welcome back to Amazing Stories of Amazing Grace, and we're here with Pastor Frank Williams. Frank, it's an interesting story you tell of a pretty challenging, hard-living sort of life in the US Navy.
Yes.
In your travels you saw Australia, you visited Australia, so you obviously made some decision to come back to Australia.
Yes, I did. I fell in love with Australia, with the country first.
Okay.
And then the girl.
Okay. Yeah. We'll come to that later.
Yes. And I was just thrown away with the lifestyle of people here. And when I got to Australia, I was at a loss. You know, when I came here during the R&R, and there's a lot of American people here.
Yes, doing R&R.
So I decided to stay, and I woke up one morning, and I was the only person in Australia, I mean, out of all the Americans. And I tried 2 or 3 times to go, but something was keeping me here. And I blame Jesus for that. Something was keeping me here. And I went to the airport, and I turned around and I came back.
Is that so?
Yes. And one of my associates, wasn't a friend at that point, she said to me, she said, why don't you give Australians a break? Why don't you give us a break? Why are you going to leave now?
She's a great sort of friend to have.
Yeah. And what was happening with me, Chester, was the lifestyle that I was living, I really wasn't meeting any real Australians.
Okay.
You know, the nightclubs and the pubs was my game. That's where I went.
So that was your lifestyle?
That was my lifestyle.
Okay.
And when you, what kind of drunk? You got nothing in common with a drunk. Like day got nothing to do with night, you know? So I saw all Australians as these very unhappy drunk people, you know?
Right.
You see them on a Monday morning, you say, hello, oh, how are you doing, my brother? Nice to see you this morning. Have a happy day. But you go and you see that guy Friday night after you had 2 or 3 on his belt, and hey, man, he's falling all over the place and got nothing nice to say to you. So I said, well, okay, I'm going to give Australia a chance. And I went out and got me a job.
So you obviously got out of the Navy somehow. Was that legal?
Yes, I done my time. Done my time, and I got out and I flew back to this country.
Okay.
Yeah, from the Philippines, and that's how much I loved the country. I didn't even go back to America, because the American government wouldn't pay your way anywhere else. You had to go back to PAC. Yep. And I paid my way from the Philippines here to Australia.
Brave decision all by yourself to this country, a long way away from home. Yeah. So you get yourself a job.
Yes. I get myself a job, and the first one, it wasn't an Adventist company. Yes. This was I was an exporter, exporting beef, and I got this job with these people, and it was. Then I get to know people, because I was traveling. I was driving to Sydney from Newcastle, all around, and I got to know people. I got to meet the real working Australian people, you know, and through that I started coming across Christian people, and I thought, well, Australia is not that bad after all, you know. And I thought about this girl. Give us a chance, you know. So, and I did, and I'm glad that I did. So I'm here 33 years later to prove that I gave him a chance and I got hooked.
Right, that's wonderful. So Frank, your lifestyle here in Australia is still very hard living, anything but Christian in terms of your lifestyle, lots of alcohol, etc., nightclubs. So at some point, something led you or guided you towards being a Christian and becoming a Seventh-day Adventist. Tell us the rest of the story.
Well, I met this young man, and he was maybe 10, 15 years younger than me, and he was an Adventist. And I saw this man one day. We was working, and now I'm in the Adventist company. I'm working for an Adventist company.
Which is amazing.
Yes, I couldn't get away from Adventist people. This is what I'd say. God led me to Adventism.
Yes.
And I'm working for this Adventist company, and it's still in trucks. And this young man had heard that I was in Australia and I was from America. And he loved American cars. So he said, well, I'll look him up. Well, we was on this wharf when we had been there for 3 days on Strack. And I saw him way down at the end of the wharf. He started coming that way, and it's amazing. I just looked at him, and around his face, there seemed to be a halo of light. And I couldn't get my eyes off of him. And he walked straight up to me. And when he walked up to me, he said, "You black?"
Yes.
And I thought, well, Australians are not that far off. They can tell colors, you know. But anyway, we started talking, and straight away, I knew something was different.
Yes.
Because all of my life, my adult life, even from young adult life, I was a swearer. I used to swear a lot.
Yes.
Dirty language.
Okay.
I didn't know I couldn't breathe a decent breath of air without swearing. Every word was swearing, was swearing, was swearing.
Yes.
And I noticed these things started changing in my life. Because when I asked him, I said to him, I said, "Are you some sort of a Christian, mate?" I said, you're a bit weird, you know. He's different from the rest of us truck drivers, you know. And he said, "Yes, I am." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "What denomination are you, you know?" He said, Adventist. I said, you those people that go to church on Saturday, right? And he said, yes, you know. And he said, I would like for you to come along sometime, you know. I said, oh, yeah, I will. I'm used to going to church. Been going to church all my life. Wasn't getting anything from it, but I wasn't afraid to go to church. So I did. I wound up going to church with him, and the day I walked into that church, I knew something had happened to me because I saw something that I'd never, ever seen before.
What was that?
And there's people with Bibles.
Okay.
The churches that I had been going to, everybody had a Bible, but they never left out under their arms.
Okay.
They didn't know what it was like to open the book, you know.
Yes,
and here was the minister up front inviting these people
to open the Word.
To open the Word of God.
Yeah,
and it really blew me out to see that these people knew where to go. If he said, go to the book of Job, these people went to the book of Job.
And that impressed you?
That impressed me. I said, these people know something about the Word of God.
Very good.
They got relationship with the book that they got in their hand.
Excellent. Look, we'll pause there and go to a break, and we'll look forward to see you after the break. Welcome back to Amazing Stories of Amazing Grace, and we're with Pastor Frank Williams. Frank, it's an incredible journey so far. I just want to go back. I remember you sharing with me this young man, and you shared earlier that you met this young man walking on the wharf.
Yes.
And you saw him, and there was something very, very different about him.
Yes.
And you were drawn to him.
Yes.
He became a very good friend of yours and was partially responsible in terms of your journey.
Yes.
Tell us some more about your influence upon him.
Yes. Well, this young man is, I can call it by name, Michael O'Neill.
Yes.
He was a big influence on me, on my life. Now, when I saw him, I pulled him right out of church. Now, his pastor had told him to get rid of me.
He'd specifically told Michael to do...
Get rid of that man. He will pull you down.
Okay.
And when Michael came back and told me what the pastor had said, I said, oh, forget about him. You know, I said, look, I can stay over in this room and smoke my stuff and drink my alcohol, and you can stay over here and read your Bible. Little did I didn't know that this was impossible. But the pastor knew. Yeah. So he said, get rid of that man. So he was hooked into me now, and we friends, you know. Yeah. And I never will forget the first night I got him on a beer. I was drinking, and I said, have a beer. And he said, oh, no, thanks. I said, oh, come on, just one. And he did. He took the beer. Okay. And then it went from there, beer, 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 beer. And from that, it went to marijuana, marijuana, marijuana. Okay. And one night, I went home. And there he was plastered.
Yes.
He was falling all over the place, using this foul language. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to take him back to church.
So there was a bit of guilt there, Frank?
Yes, it was. Because I felt I was the one, which I was. Oh. I was the one that brought him out of the church and put him where he was, even though he had been warned. And I went against the pastor, said, oh, forget about them. They don't know what they're talking about. I can stay over here and drink what I want to drink, and you can stay over there and read your Bible. It's okay, man. So I knew it wasn't the time to tell him then, because he wouldn't understood nothing that I was saying. So I said, I'll wait till in the morning. Then I will let this guy have it. So when I went to him that morning, I said, Michael, look, I said, I didn't like what I saw.
Excellent.
I said, look, you need to go back to church, man. I said, you appealed to me with what you were the day I saw you.
Very good.
I said, but the way I have led you now, I said, I don't like what I see. I said,
so you turned preacher already?
Already. I was already preaching to this man, you know. And he said, I'll go back to church if you go with me.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, this is no problem. I've been to church before. I can take him to church, drop him off, and then get on with my life. of doing the devil's work, you know.
Yes.
So the morning I went to church, I went in there with him, and I'm going to tell you, my whole life just went boom, just changed. I saw these people, and these people were so different. Okay. You know, I've never seen people like that, Christian people.
Yes.
To me, they just looked like a band of angels. And I was invited to lunch, you know, and it was just so nice. Then I met another pastor. He's an evangelist now. I won't mention his name. But then he started studying with me. And one guy, I must tell you this, Jason. He figured I was hopeless because he studied with me for about 3 weeks. And every time he would come, he was coming at 12 o'clock. Every time he was come, I would be looking out the window, and I'm smoking these cigarettes, you know, smoking these cigarettes. And somebody had told me, all you need to do is get some perfume and spray. You know, and I had all this perfume I had bought, you know. And when he come in, he could smell it. I didn't think he could, you know. And finally one day he told me that, look, I'm going to move on. And he did. He moved on. And this man went overseas.
So he literally finished the studies with you?
He finished the studies with me.
He felt likewise there was no hope.
He felt there was no hope. See, that's what I say. You know, I'm glad God don't walk away from us.
Absolutely.
You know? And that man came back. And when he came back, I was the pastor of one of the biggest churches.
Here in Queensland?
Yeah, in Queensland. And he brought a group of pastors there, and we were standing out to meet him. When he gets out of the car and he walks up, he looked at me, he said, Frank? And I wouldn't let him live it. I said, well, you give up too soon. You give up too soon. And he looked at me and he said, I'm sorry, you know. But
that's a fantastic part of your journey, Frank.
Yes,
So you're attending church regularly, not yet baptized. You're looking for a wife. Just briefly share with us in relation to that.
Well, I was looking for a wife on my own, and I hadn't consulted God about it. I knew I wanted a woman that believed like I believed, the same faith.
Yes.
And I went out looking for this woman, you know.
Did you find her easily?
No, I never did find her. The one that I was looking for on my own.
Yes, yes.
I was going to all of the singles meetings and all, and nobody would wear above me. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with me, you know?
You're pretty handsome.
Yeah, I thought, I look pretty good-looking guy, dressed nice, you know. And I thought, well, what do I do now? And all of a sudden, I went one day to my work, and the boss was there, and I went in the office and I was talking to him. And I said to him, I looked through the window and I saw this girl sitting in there. And I said to him, who's that? And he said, that's a girl looking for a job. And I said to him, hire her. He said, why? I said, she's going to be my wife.
Just like that?
Just like that.
That's amazing.
And then 2 or 3 days later, I went back in the office and he said, go out and talk to your wife, you know. So it all started there. Then I invited her to church. And she told me that she didn't go to church, that she had gone to a church when she was a child. Her grandmother used to take her to church. And I got her to go to church with me, and I introduced her. Because at this time I was studying. I introduced her to Adventism. And then we studied together.
And you were baptized together?
And we were baptized together.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
I mean, I know Karen very well. She's an absolute gem.
Yes.
Wonderful pastor's wife.
And then we got married. And I always say we did it right. You know, we put God first, and, you know.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I suppose we didn't do it all together, right? Because 2 of us went on honeymoon and 3 came back.
And Frank, just in finishing off, you sit with us here as a pastor. You've pastored some major churches here in Queensland. Very, very briefly, are you happy with the way God has led you?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm right over the moon, if I can use those words.
It's wonderful.
Yes, yes. I'm happy for God. I'm happy for the journey that I came. And when I look back, it wasn't rough. You know, when I look back, because God never promised us a bed of roses, did He? You know, so when I look back over my life, I'm so glad that God have led me to where I am today. And I would like to say to whoever's watching, I know that sometimes there's things in our lives that we can't handle. And I would like to say to these people, if there's any hiccup in your life, yes. I know Satan had told this lie about, I got you in my prison, I have locked you up. Don't listen to Satan. He's a liar. That door is open. Step out of it. And when you step out of it, listen to the small voice. Jesus said in Matthew 11:28, come to me, all you who labor and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Go to Jesus. He's there.
Thank you very much, Frank. I'm sure you've really enjoyed this amazing story of amazing grace in Frank's life. We look forward to seeing you next time.